Welcome to everyone in our panel session about social innovation from different European perspectives. My name is Norbert Kunz. I'm the CEO of Social Impact from Germany. We have built in Germany a network of social entrepreneurship incubators. We run 10 social entrepreneurship incubators and support social startups in developing social innovations. We ourselves develop innovation in the education sector and for rural areas, and the Social Impact is also the National Competence Center for Social Innovation in Germany. I have brought 4 experts with me from the European perspective. We have 2 participants from Spain and Primož from Slovenia and Marge. So it's very, very nice that you are here now and discuss with us. I think we have had a long discussion in the past about social innovation. We have dealing with different topics in social entrepreneurship for many years, all of us. And we have a clear strategy to develop social innovation in our different countries. But also, I realized in the last 4 or 5 years, when I go through different countries and different places, that we have a different terminology, that we have different definitions about social innovation and social entrepreneurship. That would be one part of our discussion later. But maybe first, I would like that my participants introduce themselves, and maybe you can give me an answer to one question. The question is, on the scale from 0 to 100, which position has social innovation in your country? Maybe Lucila, will you start?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Wow. I think in Spain, it's hard because when you're in the sector, you think everything is social innovation, and then when you go and you open up, you realize that no, it's not really like that. So I would say around 30.
30%.
With a lot of, maybe less. But.
Okay. And maybe you will explain us a little bit what you are doing and from which organization you come?
Yes. So I'm from a social cooperative based in Madrid that is called Altequio Iniciativas hacia la Sostenibilidad. We work towards the eco-social transformation in different pillars regarding environmental things and social things and social economy. And in all our processes, we involve a lot of social innovation in the methodologies, the processes, the partners, the people involved, and the results we want to get.
Thank you. Marge, will you explain us a little bit about your work and which range you are in your country?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm very, very happy to be here today, and hopefully we'll have an interesting discussion. A couple of words about me as well. So in 2019, I founded the first impact investment firm in Estonia. It's called Limitless Impact Investments, and so far we are the only one. There are some more players coming into the sector as impact entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship is getting more and more popular. That's at least what we can see in Estonia. And before founding Limitless, I worked in Social Enterprise Estonia, also known as Social Enterprise Network Estonia, which is the umbrella organization for all the social enterprises in Estonia. The main goal for this organization is to build up social entrepreneurship ecosystem so that social enterprises could really thrive, so that they would have the knowledge, that there would be support from the state, and they would be successful. And if I would need to put a number behind where we are right now, so we're just taking baby steps, I would say 10. We have a lot to do. Just to give a bit of background, Social Enterprise Network was founded in 2011 and was kind of the first organized organization that was really dealing with social entrepreneurship and social innovation. So we are just starting out, and we have a long way to go.
Okay, thank you. Mónica, you are also from Spain. What's your perspective?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to have the opportunity to discuss this topic today with you all. Well, I think that as Lucila was saying, in Spain there are more each time more interest on the social entrepreneurship and social innovation topics, but it is I think that there is still, like, the sector is still a niche. No, it's not something that it's not a sector that we could say that is mainstream, or the business sector in general or the non-profit sector is applying in general all the practices that we understood as key in the social entrepreneurship sector. Then I think that one of our goals as an organization, like I came from Socialness Foundation, which is a foundation founded more than 10 years ago, and we support entrepreneurs, investors, and corporates, and in general other actors through inspiration, to education, to connections between them, to create those initiatives that might allow to promote social entrepreneurship as a sector that maybe in the future be mainstream in the country. But today I would say that's still, we are on the path of that, but the country is not yet. I couldn't say that it's like a generalized practices that we could say.
Okay, what's the number? 10?
I will say that 25% probably.
Okay, we're close together with between 30 and 25%. Primož, maybe you will help us from your country.
Nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Primož Šporar, coming from Slovenia, basically involved in the organization called Fund 05, which is a foundation for social and impact investment. So obviously one of the goals is to support the social innovation development in Slovenia and abroad. I won't go into details what we do, but through the debate, I'll try to be concrete on examples that we kind of an experience that we gathered in last years developing the social innovation area in Slovenia. Regarding the number, it's kind of hard to estimate, but I would say, yeah, very early start phase, I would go with 15, for example. I usually compare the social innovation with another industry in Slovenia, with the cryptocurrencies, because this is one of the areas also coming in, but sometimes people think it's weird, untrusty, things are in the development, so a long path to go. So I would go with the 15, but not based on the real data, more on the estimation.
Okay, that seems that we have a lot of work in front of us. If we're between 10 and 25, 10 and 30% on the scale. Maybe one remark to our participants: if you have any questions, you can point your questions in the chat rooms, and I will overtake your question and will ask our experts on this panel. Maybe I go on with Primož. I mentioned already that we have a broad discussion about social innovation and social entrepreneurship in the last years, but we don't have a common definition about this. What is your definition? What is the definition in your country about social innovation and social entrepreneurship?
Yeah, this is probably one of the issues that is already on the table practically at every event. But basically, if you see it from the European perspective, you have all these different approaches. At the national level, it depends really on the country. If we talk about Slovenia, one of the, I would say, bad things that we have is that we regulate everything, even if we don't know why exactly from the beginning. So Slovenia adopted very early the law on the social entrepreneurship, including the definition for the social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, and social innovation. That has pluses and minuses, obviously, because you can rely on the regulation in the sense of that you say a definition that it's clear what we mean about, but on the other side, it's not necessarily the best for the development. If I would go into details, obviously the social enterprises are related to some of the characteristic being not-for-profit. They need to obtain status. They can have different legal forms, but basically they are not exclusively for the profit. They need to have this social impact, societal impact element, which kind of distinguish them from other industries. What I think interesting approach is, and this is for a good debate, maybe some other time, is on the definition of the social innovation, which in Slovenia, according to the law, says that the social innovation includes all the solutions for society problems and challenges, but basically links it to the areas where market and public sector had no answer. This is, in a way, very, I would say, funny definition, because it kind of implicates that what market and the public sector couldn't regulate, that there is a place for the social innovation. And not necessarily everybody would agree with that, obviously, right? Especially for the complex society challenges, you need partnerships and so on and so forth. But it's kind of a interesting definition, and it's written in the law, actually.
Okay. Does it mean only the public sector has no answer, or also the business sector has also no answer?
Well, where the market and public sector has no answer.
Okay. Okay. Good.
But if you would go into details, what was exactly the intention of the legislator, you would have a hard time to find out what was meant by that.
Yeah. Thank you. Marge, in your country, I have read that social innovation is a part of the overall strategy on growth and development. That means that your state is very interested to develop the sector. Do they have a common strategy? Do they have a clear interpretation and clear definition what they think about this? And what is the strategy?
Yes, so actually we don't have it yet. So we don't have a clear understanding on a state level what social innovation means and what social entrepreneurship means. So meaning that we don't have legal definition, and this is a headache, because if we want to do something for social enterprises on a state level, if everybody understands it in a bit from a bit different angle, then it's a nightmare. But we have, as Social Enterprise Estonia, tried to define what the social enterprise could be, and this definition is widely used by our partners and by the ecosystem players. So in a way, there is some understanding around it. So how we define it? There needs to be clear mission, either it's societal or environmental, and it needs to be the incremental part of the business model as well. We are not saying whether the social enterprise should be an NGO or a for-profit. They could be everything, but they definitely need to have this sustainable business model in order to at least have around 35% revenue coming from their business activities. So that kind of implies that there will be sustainability for the business as well, which means that in a long term, there will be more impact as well, because those companies or social enterprises will stay around and it won't only be project-based. In addition to that, we also look a bit around the profit and how profit is given out. But since many companies in this sector are not profitable, then this is not that important, actually. We are more looking at the revenues. And we're definitely trying to work towards coming up with a definition that is widely understood for the social enterprises themselves, but for the wider public too. Because some social enterprises tend to think more of themselves as companies, and some tend to think more that they are NGOs and they don't need to really have this specific business model attached to what they're doing or attached to their mission, which is always should be there. So it's a bit complicated, but since we have been building up this sector for the just past 10 years, then there's a lot to do.
Okay. Spain has already a long tradition on social innovation. So, well, it's my feeling. I deal with since 10, 15 years. We are together with transnational partners from Spain. What is your experience on the development of social innovation in Spain? And who are the most active partners and drivers on social innovation in your country? Maybe Lucila.
Well, I think here in Spain the third sector has it's quite strong, at least in the network where we work. The social economy network and the third sector, fourth sector is very strong, and taking also advantage of the fundings that the European Union, for example, has. We can really try and create spaces to do this social innovation, but more from the table of, like thinking and meeting, and this is a big also privilege and opportunity. In many parts of the world, this is not available, like just to meet and to create this innovation from the thinking and sharing with other entities, processes, and designing new methodologies to innovate and processes. And I think for sure there's also a lot of innovation in the population, like just trying to see how to solve issues and challenges that we have socially and environmentally, and from there innovating bottom up. So I think there are both in Spain, and this is really a good situation. For sure, it could be increased, and I think we could like trying to create processes where we can have even more voices, more people, more differences of stakeholders participating. And trying to put these two together, like the bottom up and the top down, we can really create like processes that can be very maybe with more impact. Just putting these two together, but I think we have kind of these two possibilities, and sometimes in many places in the world, for example, I come from Latin America. This possibility of a lot of entities sitting down, thinking, sharing ideas, it doesn't happen so much. It's more like, okay, we have a big problem in the street, in our house, in our neighborhood, in our collective, let's do something. This is more like the way it gets. No, we don't have so much time to think. It's more like solving.
Mónica, do you like to add something to this?
Yeah, I will say that in the side of social innovation, I think that important promoters right now, or that have an experience of promoting social innovation, have been like the local governments. I think the local governments has started to promote also initiatives to provide funding for local organizations that are making solutions for social and environmental problems. Despite of those efforts, I will say that those are atomized. No? There are like experience that happen in some communities, in some autonomous communities, but there is not like I couldn't identify like or I can identify like a big promoter or supporters of the sector. I would say that more on the side of social entrepreneurship, understood it like the kind of organizations that are using market-based solutions for social and environmental problems. I would say that incubators and accelerators have been playing an important role to drive the sector and to support entrepreneurs. And I would say that recently, probably, there is a plan that the Spanish government launched that is called Spain Entrepreneurial Nation. That even if it's not focused only in social innovation and social enterprises, has a focus on the entrepreneurial sector, but with transversal topics as sustainability, social inclusion, the generation of employment for more disadvantaged people, then I think that even if that strategy is just launched, I think a couple of months ago, but it's a way that it's a plan that is reflecting some of the calls of the sector and some of the calls of the population, no? Then I think that it's a good plan for the future. Let's see what is going to be implemented, but includes like 50 actions that might take place in the future, and that I think that if it's good implemented, it's going to support our sector as a consequence.
Thank you. Primož, I come back to you. You have a social innovation law and social entrepreneurship law in your country, but did you really get support for the development of the ecosystem from political side? And how is the relation to the private side?
I think this is one of the major issues that we debate in the last years. Whether does it make sense to actually adopt law and definitions and everything without having a real background behind that? I think this is a clear example where probably it was premature to do that, because once you do that, you build expectations, obviously, and you don't fulfill them, and you don't actually give people the food to develop the concept, the ideas, and everything. And I think one of the, I would say, modern phenomena of including social innovation is actually that nobody is against that, obviously, right? You can't find a political party or the government or the local government who would opposite the social innovation. Not necessarily that they would know in details what we talk about. Because, for example, we did a small survey, even with the students, 5 of them mean 5 out of 10, that means half, mean that social innovation is related to the reform of the social aid system. That's weird, right? Obviously, they don't have a clue about that, but it's a process, obviously. That's why we're on the 15. But talking about the governments, I think the decision makers actually lack of practical tools and understanding to be actually more at this point they're not that, I wouldn't say they're useless in a way, and they don't prevent the development, but they surely don't support it in a way that could be supported and would need to be supported. And I think these supporters of the whole thing, you can find them also in the social economy area. Obviously, everybody is keen to develop the social innovation, but again, this sector has its own, I would say, restrictions. In some of the cases, I work in the incubators and accelerators, you can clearly see that some of the organizations see their own interest in front of the public interest. Not necessarily that they challenge the main society challenges, but they obviously see there's a, I would say, even a business opportunity to develop their activities in a way. So it really depends from which perspective you see it. And if you don't have this coherent approach from different stakeholders' views, I think we jeopardize the dynamics of the social innovation development. And that, especially in these vulnerable phases in the beginning, might cause a lot of headaches.
Okay. And maybe I go to Marge. As we talked about the situation in Estonia, you said it's very, very small connection to social innovation up to now, but it's a part of your strategy on the state strategy. How does the private sector react on this? Do you have connection to the private sector? Is support from the private sector on the development of social innovation?
Just to maybe add a bit more on the side first around the public support. So we do have this civil society development program that for the new time, or for the next 5 years, it was just confirmed a couple of days ago. And for example, our organization will be the strategic partner as well. And we are working quite closely with the Ministry of Interior, and they have been very keen on developing social innovation and social entrepreneurship in Estonia as well. So this is one thing that's good in Estonia. I think that we have really partners in the public sector. But now when it comes to private sector, then that's maybe not going that well. So we have been more focused on partnerships with the public sector and maybe not that much with the private sector. However, there are some initiatives that are kind of helping to boost the social entrepreneurship in Estonia as well. For example, we have the biggest entrepreneurship competition called Ajujaht, and together with one of the local banks here, we have offered like a special prize for the idea that has the biggest positive impact for the society or for the environment. And we have been doing that with their support for a couple of years now. And what we have seen is the increase of the applicants who are from the social entrepreneurship theme. So social entrepreneurship is getting more and more popular. And since we have this publicity in the biggest entrepreneurship competition year on year, I think it's having really a good impact. But otherwise, from the private sector part, yeah, there's a lot more work to do as well. But I would like to bring out this one competition. There are some other incubators as well, where our private parties playing a role, but this Ajujaht is one of the biggest ones.
Okay. The situation in Germany is strange. I think we have a very developed ecosystem on social innovation developed in the last 10 years, but it's based almost only on the private sector. Mm-hmm. So funding came from foundations and CSR departments, but we didn't get any money from the European or from the public sector. Almost no money from the public sector. They start now. Since 2 or 3 years, they start to think about it, or they get a feeling about social innovation and what is social innovation and why is social innovation important. We had last year, we had a decision in our parliament that the government should foster social innovation in Germany. And since this time, we get more and more acceptance, reactions also from ministries. But for 10 years, there was almost nothing on the public sector. So I will go to the Spain side. What is the situation? Do you get most support from the public sector, from ministries, or is it more on the private side? Mónica, sorry.
Yeah.
Mónica.
Sorry, do you ask me about right now what kind of support they are?
Yeah, do you get funding and support from the private sector? Do you have connection maybe to foundations, these art departments, businesses, or it's all things are based on public funding?
I wouldn't say that it's that depends on the kind of solution that you are providing. I feel that, as I said before, the public sector has some instruments for social innovation of probably non-profit. For example, a recent study that was launched by Estade, that is a Spanish business school here, launched a couple of weeks ago, a report about the social entrepreneurship sector, and they identify that, for example, non-profit social enterprises, most of them base their incomes on public funding. But for example, in the case of social enterprises that are for profit, they receive the most. They identify like at least almost all of the for-profit companies or for-profit social enterprises base their incomes on the sales of products and services, at least on a 25% of the total of the incomes. So I would say that for capital to growth, it's a different matter. I think that most of the companies rely, or the social enterprises rely in private funding, even that its private funding is scarce. It's scarce because, especially for the early stage, because I don't know, the risk, some of the private funders doesn't understand necessarily the impact that the social enterprise is generating. Then I think there is still a lot of work to do regarding to provide funding for social enterprises, but also I think that there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity for foundations, especially for those that are, I don't know, that are on the capability to provide patient capital to social enterprises, like funding that is flexible, that is going to wait for results, or that is linked to impact. That's something that is missing, I would say, in the Spanish ecosystem. That probably is available on the later stages, but it's not available at the early stage.
Okay. Lucila, would you like to add something to this?
I don't know. I would say that it's a little bit of a mix, but for sure we have a big opportunity because we are still in the kind of in the beginning, or we can grow a lot. It could be taken, and we could really connect much more with both, with the public sector and with the private sector. I think with the public sector, there is a tendency, I think, like that is good that the public policies include more social innovation, and also that we try to find new ways to try to bring new solutions to problems that we have had forever. So I think it's necessary, and it's also coming, and you see more and more this in the public policy. So this attracts more in the local levels from the government, the need to create this. Also from the European level, we have like these calls and possibilities to present projects to receive this money, but it could be more difficult for social entrepreneurs and small entities and small groups to apply for this. So sometimes like the competition is big, and it could be like a challenge. Although, as I said before, there are these fundings here available in Europe. On the other side, I think that with the private sector, I think we also there is like the challenge from the social and environmental sector to connect more. How can we connect in a real way and really find objectives in common? Because sometimes it feels that we go in different ways, like one is looking for an impact where we can really take care of the people and the environment, and sometimes we feel that the other side goes really on the other way, and how can we really meet here? Is there any way, and can we really work together? And for us, it's really like we find like a very interesting path on working with the people that are not many times it's not only in the organizational level, but in the personal level, like really working. We do a lot of also courses and trainings on social innovation, and try to get on how can we start changing our minds and the way of doing in the personal level, so that we can also trust that all these people can take these like tools and abilities to their own collectives, organizations, businesses, etc.
Thank you. Mónica mentioned also already that the sector is very diverse, different fields and different actors and different challenges on the sector. You mentioned, for example, that in the early stage phase is much more complicated than in the later phase, or there are financial gaps. Primož, what would you say? Where are the biggest gaps to develop an ecosystem in your country?
Well, for sure, as you say, the early stage and the startup phase of the social innovation is one of the hugest problems. Not necessarily that we would have a large scale on that. We might actually work more on the education programs to actually, I would say, motivate and incentivize the young people, the other sectors, not only the social economy sector in Slovenia, to enter the social innovation. And where I can see a huge opportunity is actually to link I would say, the larger audience. That would include also the private, the commercial sector and the business sector, because obviously there are means and finances. But what you need to do, and that's our experience in the last 2-3 years, is that you need to link the social innovation with the language that they speak about. For example, in our case, it was very successful if we linked the social innovation with the competitiveness on the market. If the companies understand that being a part of the social innovation process might result in their better position and more competitive position on the market, this is one trigger to involve them. Once you have these strong partners on board, then not necessarily the financial side and everything else is such a problem as if you work only with the smaller NGOs or little social innovators. And the other aspect I think is very important is that I think the social innovation per se brings also new business models. So not necessarily we need to stick only to selling products and services on the market, but if you compare these new models of social outcome contracting, social impact bonds, preventing instruments, saving the money for the public authorities, and so on and so forth, this is the world where the commercial sector is not at home and needs additional knowledge, needs additional partnership with the not-for-profit social economy sector, because the problems are obviously complex, and you need to build on the impact partnership, what I call it, that way. And I think this could actually help in 2 ways: being more effective in solving the complex society problems, but also actually solving the problem of these practical tools that are missing, direct financing and so on and so forth. But obviously would need also to go hand in hand with what EU is actually explaining and kind of advocating, that the recovery, resilience, and all the future efforts for the post-COVID phase would actually strongly and practically support the development of the social innovation, both in our countries as member countries, but also at the EU level.
I think that's a very interesting argument. I haven't heard this before. When I had discussions with political decision makers and so on, and I got the answer: the business sector will drive innovations, and the social sector will adapt this innovation in their part. Now you turn it around. You say we have a social innovation sector which drives innovation, and the business sector can profit from this. That's it's a new argument. Is it like this?
I think if you think wisely, one of the, at least in my opinion, one of the major goals that we have is actually scale up social innovation. And obviously, we can't do it alone. I'm pretty much convinced that if we link that only to the not-for-profits, only to these 10, 15, 20% in the society, as we evaluated in Spain, Sweden, and so on and so forth, we can't be successful, at least not in the short term or in the medium term. So we need to build stronger partnership. And in order to do that, you need to tackle the problems that other sectors have. Obviously, the public sector has its own agenda and you need to help them. But I think the major opportunity lies in a strong partnership with the commercial sector and businesses. And I think if we talk about that language, I think they can clearly understand. I'll give you an example. I have a patent, right, intellectual property. If I explain to the business, I can do it in 30 seconds what I do. They understand and they can evaluate and assess the risks working with me. If I try to explain what my social innovation is about in my ordinary language, they don't have the time, the effort, the patience to hear all that. They need to understand it in their language. And I think this is one of the main tasks, to clearly visualize what are we talking about and to involve them in the areas where they have their own interest. And as you said, not necessarily the business sector has interest in impact per se, but it surely has interest to stay alive in this competitive world and to contribute, if from no other reason than from corporate social responsibility.
Marge, that's great. Thank you, Primož. Marge, it seems a little bit that the development of social innovation in your country came from the state. It's a top-down process. Now we have heard even from Primož, Lucila, Mónica, that we have a lot of actors in this field from bottom up, with diverse structure, with diverse interests. What do you think? How can you link this both sides with each other? Or is there a risk that the state will manage this development process?
Actually, just to maybe go back to what I was saying before, the state is definitely supporting a lot, but the social innovation started from the bottom up those 10 years ago, and there was a very small group of people who kind of went ahead and sold the idea of social entrepreneurship and social innovation to our different ministries. So the kind of drive and the input comes bottom up to the state, and we have just managed to create this mutual understanding and partnership. So I would say that it's both now, public sector is in a place now where they understand better what social entrepreneurship is, to give funding, to understand as well what are the things we need to do. But the main insight really comes from the social enterprises themselves, I would say. And just one idea that I would like to add on Primož, what he was saying before. We have tinkled around with the idea of entrepreneur in residence, meaning that if there will be social innovators who are willing to go and work together with the bigger corporations who have all the infrastructure, funding, and willingness to create social innovation as part of their new business strategy, then this would be a very interesting kind of concept as well. We have just kind of thought about it. We don't have any specific actions in place to actually try it out, but this, to me at least, seems to be a very interesting way how to go about it.
Can I ask a second question on this part? Even if if you have this common strategy, very often we have the discussion about impact measurement, because even if you have deals with private organization, with business, with foundation, also with public organization, they are really interested to have KPIs, key numbers. What is the value of your social innovation? Do you have this also in mind? Is there a strategy on it?
Absolutely. From my personal perspective, I believe that there needs to be KPIs in place in order to know where we want to go. In the world of social entrepreneurship, it is way more complicated because it's very hard. And I think it's not even necessary to compare the impact that comes from environmental, let's say social enterprises who manage to capture X tons of CO2 versus those social enterprises who actually save lives or enable better education. For those specific areas, there can be different KPIs in place but I think it's very complicated to compare those different sectors among each other. Now, when it comes to how to measure impact, then this is something that we want to work together with Social Enterprise Network in Estonia and with the public sector as well, because all of us really want to understand what is the impact that the social enterprises can actually create. But how to do it, this is another very complicated topic. To be very honest, I think it even don't start from understanding then which KPIs we should set, but we need data from the first place to even measure the social or environmental impact. So maybe we should take a step back and start to think how we can help social enterprises to gather data from the day one so that they could have really understanding where they're heading to, what is the impact, and then they can sell that impact to different ecosystem players as well, because impact investors definitely want to understand how they can measure the impact of their money. So what's the impact of their investment? Yeah, those thoughts from my side.
Mónica, do you have any impact measurement methodology in your organization?
Well, for us, I think that impact measurement and impact management is of course very important, especially because part of the thing that we do is that we support entrepreneurs on methodologies to help we support them in order to create methodologies for measurement. I think that standardization is part of that. We want in the ideal world we could standardize everything, but in the real world, as Marge was saying, it's not possible to standardize everything. So in our case, given we work also with investors and we have programs to investment readiness program for entrepreneurs, we try to support them in order to create some at least some basic specific KPIs for them and support them in order to measure and management that. But I think that's something that we need to, in general, in the sector, not only for us, is to also try to use more qualitative data. I think that in the sector and also in the side of the investors, we need to educate us and other actors regarding to the importance of qualitative data, because qualitative methods also can be rigorous. That's something that I feel that we sometimes forgot, and we think that only quantitative methods and quantitative data is important, but I will say that qualitative data could explain some things that numbers not usually explain. Then I would say that we try to combine those kind of data, qualitative and quantitative, but also we want to educate not only entrepreneurs, other actors regarding to the importance to combine those kind of methods and information.
Okay, thank you. Lucila and Primož, maybe I start with you, Lucila. Mónica mentioned already impact investors. So what they are looking for?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part.
What they are looking for, the impact investors.
The investors, what are they looking for? Well, I don't know. I think it really depends on it really depends on what kind, really, if it's like coming really from the social and environmental side, I think they're looking for a good impact and that you can scale it up and that you can really create more impact and like, try to change how we are doing right now and how can this change be not only happening but also sustainable. And I think also connecting with what we were talking about, the indicators and all this, I really think we have a big challenge because in the impact that we want to see, there is a big impact that is happening medium and long term. So it's so much difficult to try to acknowledge how is this impact happening in the long term or in the medium term in a process and how this information can be collected, no? And maybe for the investors, this is very important. They want to see the results. And I think it's not so easy to identify them in a very short term.
Primož, what's your experience with impact investors?
Well, obviously, if they don't have a hidden agenda, they would look for both, right? Obviously for significant impact and financial returns. And that's the clearest situation that you can expect. Not that we would have a practical experience back in Slovenia, but from observing what is going on in the European area, I think that's a clear agenda of the impact investors. But in that sense, it's kind of all about trust, I would say. And if one of the tools or instruments to build on that trust is also impact management or measurement, then we surely need to do it. And I'm not so much worried about how to do that. Obviously, You have different methodologies, different processes, picking right metrics, measurement system, life cycle assessment, benchmarks, and so on and so forth. So it's a process where you kind of develop something which is valuable to understand your impact, basically. What I'm more worried about from my personal experience is that why actually are you doing that? Because if you are interest driven, it might happen that this doesn't go in the right direction. Because I can see smaller potential beneficiaries, such as innovators or social enterprises, saying, we want to look nice, because otherwise we won't get the money. Because investor is interested in financing successful, impactized, and so on and so forth ventures. So if it is interest driven, we are not far away from the what I would call impact washing. So obviously, this is one way to consider whether we just foster any kind of impact measurement and we kind of leave that to the ventures and potential beneficiaries, or do we, in that sense, unify or do whatever? There is a debate about KPI standards and so on and so forth. But I think not necessarily that I can answer at this point, but for example, this year I'm a judge in the European Union social innovation competition, right? And I can see how similar approaches are, whether in Spain, Slovenia, or in Sweden. So it's basically the same message. Majority of the small innovators do not have the capacity to do the thorough work on the impact management, especially not at this point. So we need to help them. And I think when it comes to what you already said, Mónica, and everybody else, the right data, but also the tools that might help this process. And I can't imagine that in 10 years, we wouldn't have tools, for example, including artificial intelligence, automatization, open data, blockchain, all these different instruments that can actually result in a valuable impact reporting and scaling the results and visualization. And that brings also the I would say, answer to the dilemmas that we have to solve the objectivity of our reporting. Because obviously we need a reliable data, not just nice data presented to the investors, and also solving the capacity that we don't have, especially with a small organization, that solve also the compatibility of the data in a statistical measure, but also the visualability of the data so that it can be presented easier to the public audience, showing that there is a huge impact of our activities. So I think the processes will need to be changed and more moderated, but also the technologies will need to step in. Otherwise, we might talk about this for a longer time, as we already did for the last 5 years at least.
Maybe I will come back to you directly, because I had last week a discussion about finance. And probably you know that we have a new taxonomy on the European level that calls finance drives sustainability. That means there are some categories which the financial actors have to prove before they give an investment or a credit to an organization. So, and I said in this discussion, that's the wrong way. It must be sustainability drives finance, because I don't think that the financial industry are the right members to make the decision what we want to develop in our society. What is your position?
I couldn't agree more with you, Norbert, because obviously the driver of the social innovation are the challenges that we face in the society. And if these are the challenges, there is a real need for that. And that actually demand creates the supply, obviously. You can't regulate that by the finance. You just need to respond to the society challenges. And sustainability is that one who drives the finances by the end of the day, because otherwise it's not sustainable. It doesn't solve the problems. And we shouldn't, and here is, I think, one of the fears that I have, that we would step into the play where the finances actually set the priorities, and then we are kind of interest-driven, where our time and money is better earned and easier earned. But that doesn't solve the society and doesn't make it better and doesn't build on the society capital. So we need to be cautious on that, and I agree with you completely.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Because there was a lot of question marks after I came in with this discussion in this round, but it was more around of financial managers and not from the social sector. I go a little bit broader, Marge. 10 weeks ago or 12 weeks ago, Klaus Schwab, I don't know if you know Klaus Schwab, he's the founder of the World Economic Forum. And I think everyone knows that Klaus Schwab is not any left-wing party, political or whatever. So he said in Davos, the profit-oriented capitalism comes to the end. So we have to find new solutions. We have to build up a new kind of business or entrepreneurship in the world, which comes much closer to the society. Do you have any networks, any discussions about this? And that was also one point why I promote this aspect, is there a cooperation between businesses? Because we have also changed the businesses to develop social innovation in Germany. Is there a discussion in your country about this? Do you have a network who's working on this? Do you have any ideas how we can change private business into a promoter for social innovation?
I would say that on a high level, not really that much. There are probably some people out there and some groups and maybe organizations who are more thinking about how to do that. But I think it's just that more and more people understand that environmental problems are real, societal problems are out there, we need to do something about them. And those are the problem solvers. And maybe they don't, at least for me, it seems that we are in this place in Estonia where there are people who want to solve those complicated problems. And we're just getting there, but maybe not that much on how to change the whole system. But then again, I guess this one option or idea of entrepreneur in residence kind of setup could be an answer or a very practical way how to achieve it. Because imagine if we could send social innovators to let's say energy companies in Estonia, at least with good ideas how to utilize more sustainable ways of energy. And the innovation could then start coming from the bottom up kind of ways. Then I think this is an interesting idea, but I couldn't say that on a very broad level there is discussion around it. And I think I'm living in a bubble a bit because I'm hearing a lot about social innovation and impact investing and all that. And to me, it seems that everybody wants to deal with impact investing and social innovation. But in real life, it's not there.
Okay. Like I mentioned in the beginning, and when I started with this discussion today, I talked a little bit about the experience of the social impact, and I mentioned that we have supported, I think, more than 500 social startups. We have created more than 500 social enterprises in Germany, but we were focused mostly, like the tradition of Ashoka, mostly focused on individuals. And this morning I got, yesterday and also this morning, I got an email where a big bank in Germany asked me if we can work together to build up corporations for the task of social innovation. I think that for me, it's a very interesting point. But I know that Spain has a long tradition on cooperation. I think, Lucila, your organization is also a corporation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think? Is this the right way? Is fostering of cooperation a good opportunity to also to develop social innovation in the country and to scale it?
Yes, for sure. I think it's one of the things I think is most important in this in trying to create and promote this way under the system that it's more like capitalist and really profit oriented, is to join, to join forces, to get together, to have more impact, to create, to decide together where should we go. Even if we have different positions in some things, we can really push together, because the other is so big that we really need to get together. And it's also more possible, as we said, like social entrepreneurship in the beginning is so difficult. It's kind of, it's not very stable. So we need to give support to all these people trying, because if not, they would try. It would be so difficult, so challenging that they will say, okay, I stop for dreaming this. I just go to the system because it's so impossible. So I really think that community is very important. Community in the personal level, giving support in the economic level, but also support in tools, in having spaces where to share the challenges, to find new solutions, and also on how and to think together how we can impact in the institutional level, in the policies, how we can go together there, because just alone is so difficult. For example, here in Spain, we are part of the social economy that for us is a really strong network. We work a lot together, and we think together, we present projects together, we try to feed and really give the money to our other corporations and companies, and we also collaborate a lot. Like in Altequio, we usually work in projects with other cooperatives. And for this, Altequio is a social cooperative, but we also have a cooperative of second grade, we call it, that is Tangente, that it's like a group of between 15 and 20 cooperatives right now, where it's really interesting, because apart from working together and sharing projects, we also have the capacity at some point of having like a small structure in our own cooperative, that this is sustainable for us at some point. And for big projects, we can go together, we can join different knowledges and talents and things. So I think we are really betting and really supporting the collaboration. It's not only the result that we see as a better world, really working together and seeing us together and knowing that we are connected and impacting each of us, but also bringing in this collaboration, we also get the knowledge, the diverse knowledge all together. So we are so much more strong if we can really work together. I think here we have a big challenge on how to do it, and how to make these relationships nice and processes good, and how to deal with conflicts and with tensions and with diversity. And we really need more tools to make these processes get to a good term.
Mónica, you are. Oh, I have
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Mónica?
Yes.
Someone has his micro on, so that I have an echo in my ear.
Yeah, I can hear an echo.
Okay. You are also working in rural areas with your social nest, and what I thought is rural areas is a big challenge, because there's a gap between urban areas and rural areas, and I think for the development of social innovation in rural areas, you need specific methodologies and specific tools. Can you help us a little bit what you are doing on this field, and what do you think is the most important on this?
Well, in fact, we don't have like a specific program in rural areas. We obviously we are open to entrepreneurs and innovators that came from different sectors, but we don't have a program specifically in rural areas. Something that I could add, respecting that Lucila was saying in Spain, is that I think that in order that how that Lucila was asking, because I think it's clear that we need to collaborate. That collaboration is key for the growing of the sector, and to find better solutions, and cross learning is important. But I would say that aligning expectations and aligning incentives from different stakeholders is very important, because of course working with rural entrepreneurs or with corporations or with social economy organizations, the drivers for each of these groups are different. Then if the drivers are different, we need to find a way to align the incentives for them. And because of course corporations are not going to be driving from the same goals than organizations like us, and that's okay. That's good that the drivers are different and the motivations are different, but we need to find like a way to align those interests and incentives in order to find solutions that helps everyone, right?
Thank you. You all are involved in a long time in transnational projects. What do you expect from the transnational exchange? Is it an important fact for you? It's only because there is a new kind of funding. Marge.
It's definitely very important, and personally, I don't have many experience or a lot of experience working with international partners, at least during my time when I served as a CEO for the organization. But I know that from the early days there have been some bigger projects in the organization that have really helped to transfer knowledge, and we have some coming up in the future as well. So I definitely think it's super important, and especially, for example, for Estonia, where the whole ecosystem for social entrepreneurship is just, getting the power to move on, to get the best experience from those who have already done it before. For example, I think from UK, if I'm not wrong, we got some time ago the idea to really push socially responsible public procurement in Estonia, and we succeeded in this. So this was, for example, something that came from the knowledge and from the international cooperation. So it's definitely super important. Right now, we're doing some work together with other Baltic states, Latvia and Lithuania, and we're also trying to kind of develop the ecosystem together by offering good content and events for our members of the organizations and the wider public as well. So it's important. That's the short answer would be that it's super important.
Primož, what are your experiences with transnational partnerships?
I would agree. Absolutely needed. The challenge I see is that mostly it's participated by already stronger organizations and players, stakeholders. So I think what we have here lack is transferring those international experience back to the grassroots, to the smaller players that are actually not able to participate in these things. So this is one of the homeworks to be done, especially if the public funding, the EU funding is in there. And I think some of the things could be coordinated better. Some of the things could be upgraded in the sense of, the need for scale up, internationalization at the EU level and so on. I think there are some possibilities to do things better. But I think that the EU approach in the sense of what I would call flexi certainty, in a way that we know where we go, but we're flexible enough to support local environments and local challenges, is the right way. If I may spend just a minute on what you said, and Mr. Schwab, probably we're getting out of time, but let me just, I think it's extremely important what you said, and I think it's a strategic moment for all of the social economy innovators and us to think about positioning ourselves. Because obviously what you say is profit-oriented capitalism will end or is ending, right? If we understand that by work, it means that we need to play a role in the impactization of the ordinary industries and businesses, right? And we are well placed for that, I strongly believe. Because I don't know whether it was Albert Einstein or who said that 90% of the work is focusing on challenges and 10% of the innovation. So you have to be very focused on the challenge. And we're good at that. We're grassrooted. We care about society. We know what are the problems, and we can help in that. So it's not like a charity that the business would step into that. It's hand in hand. It's a win-win. It's a synergy. And this is something, advantages that we need to use, in my opinion. And well, being a very pragmatic way, as I think it's Paul Mahoney would say, we need to rethink the word profit. Because if we stay profit related only to the financial aspects, then obviously those capitalism is ending. But profit can have other categories, other areas. Because profit, we can talk also about social profit. We can talk about environmental profit, if that is easier for the industries and businesses to understand. If they have a hard problem with the impact, let's talk about profit. No problem, but not only about the financial one. If that would foster the cooperation, I'm pretty willing to do that.
Thank you very much. It would be almost a good last statement, but we have 10 minutes more. Thank you, Primož. We have in Germany, we just wrote a paper to our ministries and to our government, and the point on this paper is that in the private companies, and the balances of the private companies, they must overtake the costs for social and ecological aspects. So it must be a part of the KPIs. It must be part of the reporting. So, and if they have social and ecological costs, they have to pay for it, or they have to bring it into the prices. Otherwise, we can't change the private market economy. Private market economy. That must be a very, very important point on this. And, right, we have this experience on it. We can do it because it's a very, very big challenge for a social business or a social entrepreneur who reduce social and ecological costs. So the prices for the products goes higher. So that's a big problem we have. So it would be one point. Maybe it's just a remark on this. Lucila, maybe for you, what is the worth of the value of transnational cooperation?
Well, I think for sure this is very important because it's one of the key things of the difference, right? If we include all these costs, that we should, because they are happening, and we should include them so that we take them into account and prices go up. So I really think here there is a big work on awareness, on sensibilization, and how can we really understand as consumers that we are. Sometimes a lot of people say, like, how can I do? It's so big, everything, how can I help? Okay, just see where you spend your salary, like where you spend it, how can you buy a t-shirt that is €5? It's impossible. So you don't think you are supporting in some way like slavery, but we are. We don't think we are contaminating and polluting all the rivers, but we are with the things that we buy. So like here, I think sometimes we say, wow, it's so big, this change. How can we do? I can't do anything. And it's like, yes, if we all really start checking, and this is a problem, it's much more uncomfortable, it's a lot of work, we need to check a lot of things, like, okay, where do I buy, where this comes from, how do they do it, is this greenwashing, is this real fair trade, so I really think that there is a part that we need to include it, but there is a lot of work in education and awareness on the citizenship, because here is the big power that each person has as a citizen to really understand why this is more expensive. And we really, like, there is still this thinking that okay, because it's cheaper, it's a good reason to choose that. No, like, okay, but I bought it because it was cheaper, and we understand, yes, it's true, we don't have a lot of money. And then it's like, well, but we spend money in so many things that we don't really need. So really consumption and decreasing this in order to spend more money in the things that really value, I think it's a big change we need to do in educating and in sharing all this with the people.
Thank you very much. I will come to the last question, the same one for everyone. As we will start, or the EU funding period, the new EU funding period will start now. The fostering of social innovation has a high priority in the EU funding strategy. Imagine you can give your ESF authority a recommendation. What should they do? What is the priority of their work? Mónica, what would you recommend to your ESF authority?
Well, I will say that, well, to promote, I don't know, to use the funding to implement and to perform solutions and bring together the expectation of several actors. No, I will say that it is important that funding takes in consideration just win-win possibilities for everyone. Also, I will say that in the case of public funding, no, because which UE funding it is, I will say that it is important to see this funding as catalytic for other kind of private funding, for example. No? I will say that create this. I would recommend that create this kind of solutions that can bring new actors and the collaboration to create to see the stages for more social entrepreneurs working on the sector.
Thank you, Marge. What's your recommendation?
Maybe just to say it, trying to say it to one or two kind of sentences to enable to be a catalyst for people to understand how much social entrepreneurship can actually benefit the whole society. So focus a lot on helping different states to work on this, so that all the kind of people would understand really what is the potential behind social entrepreneurship, and then yes, dealing with funding. So figuring out what are the best ways for social enterprises to grow and scale their businesses. And for that, there needs to be funding. And that all ties back to impact measurement, at least for me. So those kind of three keywords: general understanding, funding, and impact measurement.
Thank you very much. Lucila, what's your recommendation?
I think long term, how can we really support long-term projects and like focusing on participatory approaches, but in a long-term way. I think it's very important to see the results. Sometimes I feel that in social innovation we are jumping like from one place to another, and it's and when we change from one place to another, this project that we had that was kind of starting, then we don't have any more funding and it goes and maybe disappears, or it's very difficult to stay. So I think that the long term and the multi-diversity in stakeholders, how can we really facilitate like these kind of processes where we can not only try and pilot, but also get tools to make it sustainable and create these communities. I think it's very important if all these fundings are also supporting the creation of communities of good like networking that can make sustainable the processes after the funding. No, we don't really need to. We need that all this funding will stay and we create like a much bigger impact afterwards. So I think long term and the collaboration, it's very key.
Thank you. Now we lost Primož.
Yeah.
For some reasons, maybe I can tell you what I wish for the next 8-9 years from the ESF authority. I mentioned in the beginning that we had in Germany we got almost no financial support from the public funding. That's one point, is that there should be an ESF strategy for social innovation in Germany. The point in Germany is really that we have 17 different ESF authorities, because we are a federal state. That makes it a little bit complicated with different funding structures. But I think for us, it's very, very important that they develop a strategy to fund social startups, social entrepreneurs, to foster cooperation between the social welfare sector, the social enterprise sector, social entrepreneurship sector, and also private businesses. I think that's very, very important. The biggest gaps we have is financial gaps even for social startups. We call it that a lot of them, they will come in a valley of death, because after they have developed their business concept, there is no funding strategy for them. So we have to look for a solution for early startups and for social startups to get a financing or financial support to develop their businesses. And what we are working on is to open we call it the accounts the account on the bank which has no owners. That's our 8 billion euros in Germany, and that the banks will put this money into a social innovation sector. And this is 8 billion euros. We will support social startups and social innovations in Germany. That's our idea. We are still in discussion with our government about this. They have already made a survey about this, and they will come up with a result of the survey next week. So maybe we are happy and we'll get the answers that we can use, or if the sector can use this 12 billion or 8 billion euros, that would be great. So that could be an amount of money to change the social economy sector in a specific direction. So Primož is not back now. So for this reason, I would say thank you very much to you. It was a great pleasure to discuss with you. I will hope that we will meet us in the real life, not only on Zoom or video conferences. But now it's great pleasure. Primož, you are back. You can finish now with your words, with your recommendation.
I apologize. These are the advantages of working at home. I don't know, the Wi-Fi actually fell down. So apologies. Is it still related to what we see with the EU, or?
Yeah. What's your recommendation to the ESF authority?
Okay, I'll be very brief. I think there are 3 points. Actually, they need to take responsibility in order to define the challenges. Obviously, there will be not enough money or the capacity to solve everything in the next decade or so, or financial perspective. So I think the prioritizing the challenges is one of the responsibilities of the governments, that's for sure. I think being flexible enough to enable tailor-made solutions, including in mainstreaming the social innovation, is the second one. So we can't have a unique recipe for everybody. And I think the third one, I was 15 years in Brussels. I think we should drastically reduce the red tape, bureaucracy and administration, both in Brussels and back in the country, so that we can focus on society challenges and implementation, and not so much about the reporting papers and documents. I think these are the main challenges.
Thank you very much. That was also a good finish. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Have fun.
Thank you.
See you later. See you on the present live. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.